Today, we're diving into something really fascinating, a radical new proposal for rebuilding the Somali state from the ground up. It's based on the work of Farah Ade, and let me tell you, it challenges pretty much everything we think we know about how to build a nation.
So, let's just start with the big, provocative question that's at the heart of this whole thing. What if the problem isn't just about bad leaders or flawed policies? What if the entire system, the very idea of a state as we know it, is the real issue?
Adi uses this incredible analogy to describe what happens when you try to force the standard Western model of a state onto Somalia. Think about that image for a second. A suit of armor that's supposed to protect you, but instead it's just squeezing the life out of you. It's suffocating.
All right, so first up, let's really dig into why this standard model, this suit of armor, has just never worked in Somali society. Why doesn't it fit?
You know, when we talk about a state, we're usually thinking of this, the Westphalian model. It's an idea that came out of Europe way back in 1648, and it's all about having one strong, central power that's in charge of everything. But the argument here is that this very concept is just completely foreign to Somali culture and political traditions.
At the end of the day, for a state to feel real to people, it has to answer these three really basic human questions. If some far-off government in a capital city can't do these things for you, then, as the source argues, that state might as well not exist. It's just a shape on a map. So how did this whole experiment play out in Somalia's history? Well, that's what we're looking at next. The country tried to implement this centralized or unitary state where all the power was held at the top. And as we're about to see, it was an absolute disaster.
This timeline, wow, it tells such a tragic story. You start in 1960 with this incredible post-colonial dream of a unified nation, but then that dream gets hijacked by a military regime that pushes centralization to the extreme, and by 1991, the whole thing just shatters, leading to decades of conflict. The dream literally became a nightmare.
So why? Why did it all go so wrong? The source points to three huge reasons. First, this one-size-fits-all model just didn't work for Somalia's diverse geography. Second, it turned clan identity into a political weapon. Controlling the government became a prize for total domination. And third, a top-down command system just fundamentally clashed with a culture that values negotiation and consensus.
And here's a really crucial point. Even the most common solution people propose, federalism, is seen as another trap. It creates what the author calls a frozen state. Basically, the capital and the regions get locked into this endless tug-of-war for power, and nothing ever gets done.
Okay, so if centralization is the problem, what on earth is the solution? Well, this is where we get to the core of the proposal, a complete shift in thinking, from a top-down state to a bottom-up union.
This comparison just lays it out so clearly. In the old model, power is like the sun. It's at the center and everything else just revolves around it. But in this new idea, a confederation, the regions are the owners of the power. They're the boss. And they just hire a central body to act like a manager for a few specific tasks they all agree on. And here's what that looks like in the real world. The regions delegate the big picture stuff that helps everyone, like a single currency, a common passport, up to the union. But, and this is key, they keep total control over their own internal lives. We're talking schools, healthcare, local courts, and, critically, their own natural resources. This quote really gets to the philosophical soul of the whole proposal. The goal isn't to take all the unique, vibrant pieces of Somalia and melt them down into some gray, uniform blob. No, the goal is to build a strong frame that holds all those beautiful, individual mosaic tiles together, celebrating what makes each one different.
Now here's where it gets really fascinating. This idea of a confederation, it's not some brand new modern invention. The author argues it's actually deeply rooted in early Islamic history and tradition.
The historical blueprint for this is something called Al-Sahifa, or the Constitution of Medina. This was an actual treaty that brought together different tribes, Jewish tribes, Arab tribes, into one political community. But, and here's the key part, it allowed each one to keep its own laws and its own sovereignty. I mean, just look at these principles. It's uncanny. They almost perfectly mirror the proposal for a modern Somali union. You've got internal sovereignty, your own laws, but a promise of collective defense. It's an ancient solution for a very modern problem.
So the big lesson, the huge takeaway from this piece of history, is this.
You can have real, meaningful unity without forcing everybody to be exactly the same. You don't have to erase what makes you unique in order to come together for a common purpose.
Okay, theory is great, but how would this thing actually work today? Let's get practical and look at how this confederation would handle two of the toughest issues out there: security and money.
The fear of a big, centralized national army is a major trauma in Somalia's history. So the proposed solution is a joint defense council. This isn't one army controlled by the capital. Instead, it's a coalition of regional forces that only team up to face threats from the outside. This completely removes the fear of that army being used as a weapon internally.
And what about the economy? Instead of a common purse where the central government grabs all the tax revenue, which is basically a recipe for corruption, this model flips it. Regions collect their own revenue and then pay a kind of membership fee to the union for the shared services. It transforms the whole system from a fight over resources into a mutual contribution.
This final analogy just wraps it all up so perfectly. True strength, the source argues, doesn't come from a powerful center forcing everyone into line. It comes from sovereign parts choosing to bind themselves together based on a voluntary agreement, a covenant.
And that leaves us with this final, powerful question that goes way beyond Somalia. Is a nation that's built on voluntary consent ultimately stronger, more resilient than one that's held together by force? It's a really crucial thing to think about.